There's a rare kind of fantasy that doesn't shout, that doesn't demand your awe with scale or power. Instead, it invites you to listen, to feel. Frieren Beyond Journey's End is that kind of story, a story where the world itself becomes a quiet companion, shaped not just by history, but by emotion. This video isn't about discovery, at least not only about that, it's about world building, not the kind you can chart on a map, but the kind that lingers in silence, that breathes through the spaces between dialogue, that exists not just as a backdrop, but as something deeply alive. Most fantasy stories build up bigger worlds, bigger stakes, but Frieren builds inward. Its world isn't made to be conquered, as it's already been conquered. It's made to be felt. We open on landscapes that seem almost too still, towns that are barely marked, crumbling ruins long forgotten by the people who now pass them by. But they're not empty. They're full of stories. Stories the characters might not even remember, but we can sense. There's weight in every overgrown statue. That's where the magic begins. Not the kind of magic you cast, but the kind that exists in the atmosphere. And yet, for all its subtlety, Frieren's world is built with precision. Consider how spells are treated, categorized like disciplines. Frieren doesn't just throw fireballs. She collects forgotten incantations, studies them, and preserves them. In one episode, she finds a spell that lets you make flowers. It's useless in combat, and yet it matters to her, because in this world, the useless can still be beautiful. World building isn't always about politics, wars, or power structures. Sometimes it's about value. What do people in this world care about? What do they remember? What do they discard? This becomes painfully clear when Frieren visits cities that have aged out of memory, cities that once bustled with life and now sit in quiet decay. There's a kind of honesty in that. This world isn't here to serve the protagonist. It goes on indifferent to her journey, and that's what makes it real. This sets Frieren apart from more conventional fantasy or even isekai anime like Mushoku Tensei or Tensura. In those stories, the world often bends to the main character's growth. Here, the world doesn't bend, it just continues. In one striking scene, Frieren passes through a ruined village, once saved by her party decades ago. The people are gone. No one remembers the Demon King. The gratitude faded, but still, the structure of the village carries traces of her past. A child plays near the place where she once stood in battle. The echoes are faint, but they're there. That's what makes this world building powerful. Frieren isn't trying to impress you. It's trying to make you feel something slower, something heavier, a place that remembers, yes, but also a place that forgets, because forgetting too is part of being alive. Another example, the dungeons. In most anime, dungeons are obstacles, but in Frieren, they feel more like tombs. Each one is layered with the ambitions of those who came before. You don't just defeat a monster, you walk through someone else's legacy. You feel the quiet futility of all those who chased power and left only dust. That's the emotional core here. It's not just about nostalgia, it's about transience, it's about impermanence. In the story, we see this mini arc. There's a town protected by a magical barrier. It's been there so long that no one remembers who cast it, but we do. We know it was Flam, Frieren's master. Her legacy isn't recorded in books, as we see. All her records are fake. It lives on in the safety she left behind. That's world building as empathy, as love. The show doesn't shout these things at you. It lets you find them. A spell scribbled in a diary, a flower that only blooms once every 100 years, a meal shared in a place that no longer exists. Every detail is intentional, not loud, but lasting. Let's talk about scale. Most fantasy world building tries to stretch across continents. Frieren compresses its world into small moments. A bench, a trail, a tree that was once protected by magic. These micro settings create macro emotion. You don't need to see the entire kingdom. You just need to feel the life that once passed through it. It's in contrast to isekai's world building ethos. In that genre, the viewer often steps into the unknown, and the excitement comes from discovery. Frieren, on the other hand, offers something subtler. You're not discovering a new world, you're rediscovering an old one. This is a world of echoes, and the show knows exactly how to use them. Consider Frieren's fight against herself. It's not just a magical fight, it's meant to be a metaphor. It shows the world what people try to hide. When Frieren faces her, what we see isn't just combat, it's a confrontation with herself, with struggle, with ideology. Frieren isn't fighting alone. She has Fern with her to help overpower the clone. The usually cautious Frieren takes risks during the fight to help Fern. It shows how her mentality shifted from not trying to giving her best. The world building here bleeds into the emotional architecture of the characters. That's rare, that's beautiful. Even when nothing happens in Frieren, something always feels like it has happened, and that is the soul of it all. This isn't world building made to wow, it's world building made to mourn, to reflect, to connect. The world's depth is also shown when Stark meets with a noble. The noble in question are descendants from Stark's home village. In that moment, the world opens up, again, not outward, but inward. We realize we're not just seeing a fantasy map. We're seeing time. We're seeing people who lived, who loved, who feared, and who are now gone. We get to understand the world, essentially through the side characters. But the world isn't just a place for mourning. It's also one for rediscovery. When Frieren visits the tree that Flom once shielded with magic, now twisted with age but still standing, it tells us more than 100 lines of dialogue ever could. That tree holds knowledge, history, emotion, and through it the viewer understands how world building becomes a language, not of geography but of intimacy. Even the smallest gestures ripple across this quiet landscape. These aren't side moments, because in Frieren, world building is character building. The world doesn't support the story, it is the story. The presence of age is everywhere. Broken walls, faded tapestries, tombs no one visits anymore. Frieren's world dares to be decayed. It dares to show that stories, like people, fade, but in that fading, something beautiful happens. New meaning is born. In this way, the show becomes a meditation on storytelling itself, the tales we pass down, the ones we forget, and the ones we try to remember through the traces left behind. What makes Frieren's world so unique isn't that it's vast, it's that it has lived and continues to live, even as its people and their memories fade. That's the power of great world building, a world that listens more than it speaks, a world that remembers through silence, a world that waits, not to be explored but to be understood. And if we take the time to look closely, to listen carefully, we might just see ourselves in it. That is the heart of Frieren. There's more to uncover, more worlds like this, more stories that don't rush to tell you everything, stories that trust you to find meaning in the stillness. Thanks for watching, and if the echoes linger, let them.